You are listening to the Critical Mass Radio Show, Orange County's business talk show, focused on exploring topics of interest to CEOs who are leading middle market companies. With your host, Richard Franzi.
Hello and welcome to Orange County's longest running business talk show. And yes, I am your host, Rick Franzi. Glad to have you here today with us. We have a great show planned for you. Why do you ask? Because Jeff Gable is our guest. Jeff is the founder of Gable Technology. Jeff, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me.
I look forward to talking with you. Let's get started. As a founder and an entrepreneur, I'm always curious, what was the motivation or your inspiration for you to start your firm?
Sure. So I actually have a solo consulting firm, and that desire was a bit selfish. It was that desire for control and freedom over my own schedule. I really value my autonomy, and at this point, it would be basically impossible for me to go back to full-time work. But I wanted that freedom to experiment with different business models, different pricing strategies, different market approaches, to try to find ways to bring value to my customers, my clients, in new ways. And so I really wanted that freedom. That was the original inspiration.
And so the question is, do you have the freedom?
I do. And I love it.
Okay. So I know when we start a business, we plan it. You certainly seem like the type that spends the time to, think it through before you take action. But I also know that sometimes we don't learn some lessons about business and starting one until we get in the game. Any pivots to the original business model that you've discovered and had since you launched?
Certainly, and one of these things we'll revisit later in terms of the best business advice that I got. But I started off doing so. I run a solo consulting firm. We'll talk about that in a minute in the next question. But I started off kind of on easy mode, doing hourly contract development work for different clients. But I've since evolved and I've learned how to build an expertise-based business where I still do software development projects and I enjoy doing them. And I do that to both for my own enjoyment and to keep my skills sharp. But transferring the business to be about teaching people how software development for medical devices should be done, and being more of that advisory role has been a necessary and very fun transition for me to make over the past few years. I'll also say pivot in terms of business development. At first, my business development strategy was very deliberate networking, and that is still a part of it. But I started a podcast several years ago that has really allowed me both to grow that network and also to reach potential clients. In fact, I'm working on a large development project right now where the client found me through that podcast. And I will say that that's just been a game changer in terms of positioning me in the eyes of potential clients as the expert, and they come to me instead of me reaching out to them. It's different from the warm referrals that you get from a well-developed network. It's kind of a different feel for the incoming leads you get from that. And that's been very powerful.
So I'm curious, as a fellow podcaster, what was the initial intention of starting a podcast? Was it to do the business development or was it something else?
It was a little bit on a whim. I was in an entrepreneurs coaching group with my co-host. His name is Luca Ingianni. He's actually based in Germany. And we had overlapping interests and skill sets. The podcast is called the Agile Embedded podcast. It's about how to apply Agile software techniques and methodologies to embedded systems development. So developing software that runs on devices as opposed to in the cloud or web applications. It was a bit of a whim, but we knew that we wanted to teach what we knew to those embedded developers out there who wanted to learn. We wanted to invite people on and increase our knowledge in that area ourselves. And so it aligns somewhat with my ideal client, but there's enough overlap there to make it worth it from a business development standpoint. And it's just very enjoyable to do. And so it's certainly been one of the constants in my life the last few years.
Yeah, it sounds like you're getting marketing credibility from doing it. You're getting
Exactly.
some level of business opportunities from it, and you're getting an education maybe along with relationships that you wouldn't have had by virtue of doing the show. How often does your show air?
Roughly every other week.
Okay. Any trouble finding guests?
No, not at all. And like you said, I've felt comfortable reaching out to people and establishing relationships. People then in a former life I would have been intimidated
Mm.
about or not felt comfortable reaching out to, and now it's very comfortable for me. That's a bit of a secret weapon. It's really been a positive thing.
There you go. Teachable moment, ladies and gentlemen. Podcasts,
Exactly.
the proliferation of podcasts. It's good to see, having been in this space for quite some time. It's great to see how people are using the medium for different ways, but good content is being created by many of them, and well worth the time to check them out and listen to it. But let's turn our attention back to your firm.
Sure.
Tell us a little bit more about what it is that you're doing in your technology firm.
Sure. So my focus is embedded software for medical devices. I focus exclusively on the medical device industry, and I help medical device companies. They could be startups or small to low, medium-sized companies that have a medical device prototype or a highly validated concept that they need bulletproof, verified, validated, safe software to get through FDA and into production. Um, for startups with smaller, simpler devices, I can actually handle the entire software development and documentation effort. But there are also companies that have existing software teams, particularly ones that the developers are experienced and competent embedded systems developers, but they are not experienced in medical devices. That's a great fit for me to come in and guide them through that process, what they need to do to comply with medical device standards and do so efficiently. There's a unfortunate history in the medical device industry of regulations being very onerous and not really being value add. And I feel like I've at this point learned how to satisfy regulations and produce safe software with minimum overhead. And so I can help teams figure that out. There's a few firms that do what I do. Some are larger and serve larger clients. For me, I'm a solo operator, but I've got a fairly unique combination of skill sets in embedded software development, broad systems background. My degrees are actually in mechanical engineering, so I understand the physics of the devices that I'm working on, and a solid understanding of the software processes and regulatory requirements as they relate to software. And so, that's combination of skill sets of me being able to produce that software and all the associated documentation to satisfy regulations. That's relatively unique.
I feel like we had a Liam Neeson moment there where you said you have a unique set of skills. I thought, oh boy, watch out. I guess
Fair enough. Yeah.
Someone's your fan there. Nellie puts up on through LinkedIn that you're awesome. So
Oh, hi, Nellie.
Yeah.
Good to see you. Glad you're watching.
Someone who knows you and is a fan of your work, a proponent. So I love it when an entrepreneur starts a business with a niche, because you can't boil the ocean. You got to focus in. I'm wondering a couple of follow-up questions. It would seem to me that a medical device entrepreneur and startup, that the embedded software and their device would be really critical IP for the company.
Yes.
Is that okay? And so you're getting them to trust you as an outside service provider to do that work on their behalf?
Sure. I mean, it's very common. I mean, we have NDAs and contracts, and it's very, very common in that industry because it's a lot of startups, say physician founders or people who have an idea but don't have all of the skill set. No one can have all the skill sets to build this thing. So you either have to build a team internally, or you have to build a team of external service providers. It's very common in the medical device startup world. And that's my business. Like if I ever broke a client's trust and revealed their IP, I would never work again. So lots of people are in this service providing business to this market, and it's usually not a concern.
And that's interesting too, because you said you understand how to do it within the constraints, if you will, of the healthcare industry. And I would imagine it's what you don't know as a embedded software developer that could really get the company in trouble, because you don't even know that you know what the rules and regulations are, which I imagine that's a nice prophylactic for you with your clients, right, where you're protecting them from that.
Exactly.
Okay. But you're not a software engineer. You said you're
I am,
you're
well, no,
mechanical
I am a
engineer
software
by
engineer.
training.
My degrees are in mechanical engineering, but I was never much of a mechanical designer, and it was a very it was a
Okay.
very short putt from my skill set at the
Okay.
time to
Okay.
transform myself into embedded software engineer. I made that switch 15 years ago.
Is this an exciting space, Jeff?
Oh
Is
yeah.
there a lot of innovation happening in
Yes, and particularly in terms of connected healthcare devices, IoT, the application of Internet of Things to wearables and medical devices. It's a very exciting time, and plus, just for me, it's personally interesting. I like writing software that controls physical things. It's on my desk. I can see it moving and working and sensing, and then the satisfaction of knowing that it's actually helping patients and making a positive difference in people's lives. It's a very, very good thing for me.
it seems to me, from my sense of Orange County, that Orange County is strong in medical device development.
Yes, absolutely. We're one of the hotbeds I'd say, Orange County, San Diego, Minneapolis, and Boston are kind of the hotbeds in the nation for medical device development.
So it's nice to have that target-rich environment, technically, physically in your
Yes,
backyard, isn't it?
absolutely.
Okay, and another teachable
One of the reasons
moment.
I chose that target market.
See,
Because I could have written embedded software development. I could have done embedded software development for multiple industries and have in the past.
right.
But it was what I'd done most recently. I felt most passionate about it. And the market was very local. So it was a very natural choice.
Yeah, excellent. And as you talk about it with IoT and wearables and medical devices, there is, my sense, a good amount of deal flow also going on in that space.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
it's good to pick a hot niche too. If you're going to find a niche, entrepreneurs, it's good to find one that's growing. So that's excellent. Okay, so you're building and scaling Gable Technology. As you said, you're a kind of a one-man shop. You ever feel alone or isolated as an entrepreneur with in that constraint?
In a sense, as a solo operator, certainly, but I just make it a point to, I'm constantly working with my clients with other service providers. And so I have kind of enough contact with other people. In terms of that isolation or that burden of leadership, I'm a little bit lucky in that I don't have employees. I don't plan to hire employees. I'm very comfortable being a solo operator who hires contractors kind of as needed,
Mm-hmm.
which I think you're the same.
Yes.
So I don't feel as much pressure because I'm not as leveraged. So if I make a mistake and underbid a project, I get paid a lower rate, but I don't go underwater and I don't have to fire people. I will say it's a bit playing the game on easy mode to only be responsible yourself. So that has helped in terms of avoiding that particular burden of leadership and that form of isolation.
Yes, I share your sense about that. But the reality is we still have our own bills to pay.
Absolutely. I got a mortgage and young kids and
Southern California.
Southern California, where the price of living is very high. Absolutely.
Yes,
So I certainly feel that pressure. It's
Sure.
just not magnified by also having to pay a lot of employees.
Earlier in the conversation, you mentioned a piece of business advice. I think now is the time, Jeff, if you could share that, pay it forward with our audience, that'd be great.
Sure. And this goes out to all you service providers out there. Best piece of advice I've gotten is that hourly billing is nuts. And if you Google that phrase, you'll find a person named Jonathan Stark. He's essentially a business coach for solo and small service providers like myself. But hourly billing misaligns the incentives between you, the service provider, and your client. And even the most honest, conscientious service provider who would never ever, pad their hours or swindle their client in any way still feels the insidious effect of those misaligned incentives. So I do not charge hourly in my work. I do fixed price bids for projects, and I have other pricing structures for advisory engagements. And I will say, since I kind of drew the hard line and said I will never accept another hourly engagement again, life has gotten so much better. It is more profitable. My relationships with my clients are better. There's no longer those quibbling over timesheets. we set the goals, and I do the best thing to achieve the goals as quickly as possible, with some guarantees to make it clear to the client that I'm not going to cut corners in terms of hitting those goals. And so that's been a fantastic way to structure my business that I would recommend everyone at least research. So
it sounds like that might have been a pivot in your business model, that maybe earlier on you were doing
yes,
hourly work.
yes. In the beginning, I was doing hourly contract development work, and that change in pricing has also come along with a change in my relationship with my potential clients and how I am viewed. I am no longer the cog in the wheel. I am the expert who is helping them solve their problem. And it helps them and it helps me.
So it was more than a business model adjustment. It was sort of a positioning adjustment in the minds of your clients as well, is what it sounds like.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
You're just throwing teachable moments out here right and left. Yeah, this is fantastic. I wonder if we could, pivot another time and, you're in software development, embedded software. I got to ask you the AI question.
Hit me.
What's your view of AI, and are you using it, and do you see it impacting your business model in your industry moving forward?
Sure. So two different things: how it impacts my work and then my industry as a whole. As a software developer, it is a wonderful tool to essentially, more quickly produce code than I could without it. I will say, being in safety critical software, um, any in any software development field, you cannot just say, "Hey, write me code that does this," and then blindly accept it. That is triply true in safety critical software development that I do. But I will say, um, you can use these new large language models, and the different tools that have been built on top of them to develop code. Um, I now feel more comfortable signing up for a project with a new framework that I've never used before, because those LLMs can shorten the learning curve and give me example code and help me figure out things that would have taken a lot of time poring through documentation prior to that. So that's how it's changed my work, and I use it reasonably often, and I'm trying to use it more. In terms of the medical device industry, not so much the recent large language model, introductions that have gotten everyone so excited, but just doing machine learning on wearable data that is coming from wearable medical devices. So now you can have patients wearing devices in the home. They're could be monitored up to 24/7. As long as privacy concerns are mitigated, we could be getting data off of those devices and then doing broad machine learning efforts on that population data, like so much more data than you would have had previously, where you come into the office for a specific test, or maybe if you're in a hospital. And so that has opened up a lot of really exciting possibilities for the industry. And I would say most startup pitches that I've seen in the last 5 years have that as a component of their pitch, of, we're going to connect this and get data out of it and then do machine learning. And sometimes that's not really value add or feasible, but I would say for those who have chosen a device to bring to market that where that can really unlock some new capability, it's very powerful.
Yeah, I mean, when you marry data with the AI capabilities, you have the magic. And in this way, if you're collecting a lot of information, a lot of data, boy, finding trends and things that maybe humans wouldn't be able to find.
Exactly. Exactly. And you can get the data off first and just say, with a fuzzy plan, in the future we can do some machine learning on this, but you do have to have the data. So that's often, and that can drive the design of the device and the hardware you choose to get the data off of it. And then you can figure out what to do with it later, as long as you anonymize it and satisfy everyone's privacy concerns.
It feels like we're on the brink of some major breakthroughs relative to medical devices, embedded medical devices, wearable, collecting information, and really being able to look at medicine and healthcare with a deeper understanding for kind of what's going on. I just think it's an exciting opportunity that entrepreneurs are going to figure out how to make a reality here in the world.
Absolutely. I agree.
Love that. Speaking of an entrepreneur in the world, what's your vision for your company in the future?
So for my company, I'll say I have no plans to hire employees and grow a firm in terms of headcount. I'm always looking to grow in terms of the impact that I have and the value that I bring to my clients. Um, Outside of my immediate relationship with my clients, I'm very passionate about improving the state of software development in the medical device industry. It lags behind other industries in terms of
Hmm.
standard practices that it can improve both quality and development speed. Um, and so pulling best practices from other industries, evangelizing those to this industry and teaching people how to do it better. That's a great parallel activity that I pursue and feeds in, like I said, to my business development strategy that education makes people trust me. And it's a great way to establish a first relationship with a client. But even without that, um, showing people that it can be done a better way. Software development for medical devices can be done better than traditionally done. Um, I see a lot of hope for making those improvements.
So it's sort of refreshing to have an entrepreneur on the program who sees the business being great if it's just them, Jeff. Many times
Good.
we have other visions. And I guess the only follow-up question I might have with that is, if I have you back in 5 years, do you think you're going to be saying the same thing, or is there a chance that maybe you see scale as being a good thing for the business?
No, there's certainly a chance.
Okay.
I'm always open to that, and I would say, especially if I come across an opportunity where I can be a little more targeted, say in my service offerings, and have productized service offerings, that would be the sort of thing where I could, once I have that refined, then I would have no problem kind of flipping the switch and scaling that up.
Okay. So keep that in mind, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to have Jeff back on the program at some point, and he may be talking about world domination in software development for embedded systems on medical devices. I don't know, but we'll just have to wait and see. Let's
I
say
love it.
somebody wants to connect with you on LinkedIn. They want to learn more about your company. Where should they go, Jeff?
Sure. So you can search for Jeff Gable on LinkedIn, or you can go to jeffgable.com. That's my URL. It's pretty easy to find and easily contacting me either of those places.
Congratulations on having your name as your website. Stroke achievement. Love it. Well, thank you for being on the show today. This has been, I promised the guest at the top of the hour top of the show was going to be great, and you did not disappoint. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, and thank you to the guest. You're a part of Orange County's longest running business talk show. Jeff's show now joins our catalog of over 1,400 interviews that we've done over the years here on Critical Mass Business Talk Show. If you're an Orange County entrepreneur or an executive director of a nonprofit, and you'd like to share your story with our audience, then reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm Rick, R-I-C, Franzi, F-R-A-N-Z-I. Coincidentally, that's also our company's website, rickfranzi.com. And let us know that you have an interest in being a guest on the show. Between Haley, our producer, and myself, we'll figure out how to get you on a future episode of our business talk show. And until we all have a chance to be together, I hope all of your business decisions will move your company positive direction.